Do you think it's time to retire the Captain Kirk mask? Halloween Ends is next.
Come on, let's go. Come and get me, motherfucker.
Hey everyone, this is Fantasy Picks Movie Edition. I'm your host. Well, apparently Rob put here with the most, but I don't think so. My name is Mark Kirkman. Joining me today, we have Frank Rodriguez and Adam Gonzalez. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing well.
Awesome. And the subject for this episode is Halloween Ends, which came out in 2022. And yeah, we're gonna break this puppy down. It was directed by David Gordon Green. You got writers Paul Brad Logan, Chris Bernier, and Danny McBride. David Gordon Green as well. And it was based on characters by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, which obviously is the original Halloween trilogy and series that was out there. Actually, the original Halloween, because this started out in, I believe, the 2017 Halloween. And then years later, we got the sequel to it, which was Halloween Kills. And then we ended up with this particular, I wouldn't say a mess, but problematic movie.
Problematic is being really charitable.
It is.
I mean, I would go so far as to say mess, because I don't think they knew what movie they were making.
It kind of got lost in the previous sequel. And I think they were trying to remedy the issues that they were having with that. And we will discuss within what happened with that particular sequel that basically brought us to this particular movie.
Yeah, the edge of a cliff that made me want to jump off.
All right. Well, the release date was October 11, 2022. And that was at Beyond Fest, but it was officially released across the United States on October 14th on 2022. The running time is about 111 minutes. It's based out of the United States, obviously. Budget originally was $33 million. And its box office grossing was $105 million.
Get out of here.
Yeah, apparently.
I mean, so it made a profit-ish.
They did
little
a multi-tiered launch. They did it was on Peacock and in the theaters.
Yeah, that's kind of like an issue nowadays when they do multi-release with streaming properties, and then you got people who are crazy that go out there and they hack it and they just download it free and then make their assumptions when they won't go out to the movie theater to go see it. I actually did see it in the theater because I had high hopes after Halloween Kills.
Okay.
And I was a little bit upset with the actual movie.
You are a braver soul than I, sir. Okay.
Well, honestly, I have a history of Halloween that I do enjoy. Even
I love Halloween. Don't get me wrong.
You know, I never got to see the original 3 by Carpenter in the theaters. Like you would say Halloween, which was his original. I was a young child. Halloween 2, same thing, young child. 3, still a young child, but people don't like that particular movie, but has been heralded as being an original good Halloween movie.
I actually like Halloween 3, and I always liked Halloween 3 because I understood what he was doing. He was trying to make an episodic Halloween. Every year you'd have a different story.
Yeah, and I think that kind of lost the fandom at that point because everybody just fell in love with the idea of Michael Myers.
Right.
Because of slashing. And then by Halloween 4, I got to see it in the theater, and I saw all the subsequent movie sequels after that. And
yeah, those wonderful sequels.
those wonderful sequels that you actually would try to get to a matinee because you felt, if I only spent $5 on it, it's good.
Yeah.
But when Danny McBride and the rest of the group decided to do this in 2017 for original Halloween, I had high hopes. I saw it in the theater. I thought it was good.
Yeah,
it was done very well. By the second film, unfortunately, it was through the pandemic that it came out, I believe. And then we got this thing that came out afterwards. But you would think with the whole time through the whole pandemic that they would actually write a better script. And I think it's stuck within the script. But I'm kind of digressing, unlike Rob. So unfortunately, Rob couldn't make it with us, and it's the three of us. But Frank, give us the synopsis of this particular film.
We don't need him. I'm sorry. No, I'm kidding. Halloween Ends is the third installment in the recent Halloween film series. In this horror film, that's again being charitable. Michael Myers continues his reign of terror. About 10 minutes of it. And the town of Haddonfield is in chaos as they try to stop the seemingly unstoppable killer. Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, faces off against Michael Myers one final time in a deadly showdown, bringing the iconic horror franchise to a conclusion.
Yeah,
that's overselling it.
It
Took
is.
it out and shot it. That's what it did.
It's one of those of like we got this, we franchised it. The first one was great, just like the original. If you think about it, a lot of people still hold the original to be what it truly is a classic, and that was, thankfully to the creators of like Deborah Hill and John Carpenter and everybody else involved within that particular movie, especially Jamie Lee Curtis, because she came from Film Legacy,
right?
But
even two, I enjoy two. I saw two in a theater, and I think I was about 10 or 11. So
wow.
Yeah, my parents. We've already established that my parents did not have any like boundaries on things.
You.
Sometimes
they didn't have a leash on you. You just went and did
Dawn
your
of
own
the
thing.
Dead in the theater. I saw. Come on. But,
yeah, I mean, same. Well, I didn't see the original in the theater. I mean, I saw them as a kid. Mm-hmm. Funny enough, my first introduction to it in a theater was actually H2O, which is actually like what 20 years later.
20 years later, I saw that in the
Busta Rhymes.
Yeah,
but
no, not Busta Rhymes.
No, LL Cool J.
LL Cool J played the guard.
The security guard, and then this guy played her son.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It was
oh my god,
it's like right on.
I was gonna say Ethan Hawke. It's not Ethan Hawke. It's
not Ethan Hawke.
It's
Hollywood Homicide. It's
Josh Hartnett.
Yes, yes, it was. Yes.
Yeah, so probably, I mean, like I said, not my introduction to the franchise, but first time on the screen, and you can tell like that was a big moment because you're like, oh, we're bringing back the girl from the first one.
Right.
And when actually I think it was 2018, right, that this came out.
2017.
Nope, IMDb says 2018.
2018.
Is it? Okay.
It was in production. I remember it was 2017 in production.
But that's the thing. When she came back for this one, I felt like they were like, okay, let's try this again.
They tried it again.
20, 30 years later.
Yeah.
And I like that one. I thought as a standalone movie, like, would it have been like this epic conclusion? Probably not epic, but like, it was a good attempt. And then once you get, the one that came out after, and then of course Halloween Ends, it just, Yeah, they basically were just trying to milk the cow for what it's worth, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
they saw a slight success in the one in 2018 and was like, oh, we can make an unofficial ending trilogy, and
Yes.
it didn't. Yeah, and like I mean, Mark kind of said it a little early on, but like it's the writing, you know.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Rob Zombie actually tried his chance at the Halloween series as
Right.
well, and he
Yeah.
only did two.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I liked the first one that he did in 2007.
Same here.
Wasn't crazy about the second one. They were very, very opposite feels of a movie, but I loved his take. Like the first one, I really like. If anything, that's probably one of my favorite ones out of like the whole franchise. Like
Right.
it felt like a proper remake.
Remake.
You know,
Yeah.
it felt
Yeah.
updated, but you kept very certain things that were classic, like soundtrack, and
And he
it was yeah,
even expanded on a few things because
yeah,
everybody always says like, "Oh, he's been locked up since he's a little kid. How could he drive a car?" In the first one, and they explain that in like the remake Rob Zombie does. So
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But we kind of digressed a little bit. We also talked about both franchises, the original, which came
Right.
out obviously that spawned from one till I would say six ep, movie
Yeah.
sequels.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you got the Rob Zombie version, which had two, because the only reason why it came back for two is because he didn't want somebody to sully what he had already did for the
Right.
first film. So he wanted to end it on his own terms, which was fine. It was a bit different in comparison to the original, as well as its predecessor, which had six, sequels to itself, which honestly are just basically fan canon for those that go to conventions that could see any version of the shape. And uh, with the original version, you had Jamie Lee Curtis reprising her roles at least twice after the initial first movie. So
Right.
she was in H2O, like you stated, Adam. And then as well on the sequel end, where they killed her in part five when she was in a sanitarium, and
Right.
Michael pays a visit to the sanitarium and winds up killing her like in a tree with a knife or whatever, suspended. And then they continued on too with Busta Rhymes, like you had stated, Frank. And then they tried to reboot the series, and then years and years and years later, we got you know McBride coming back out with a script of his own, and Danny is mostly known from
Right.
comedy and everything else, and that's what was a strange feeling within that first particular movie in 2018 when we got this, and it was just branded as Halloween, which was good. And then we got Halloween Kills, which tried to
Which was bad.
further the story, but something was a little lost. And then by the time we get the third one, they try to enhance it as well. And that's where we sit with this particular film, what we're discussing tonight or today. And obviously, the cast in this particular movie is Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, a survivor of Michael Myers' 1978 killing spree, and Allison's grandmother, which is one of the main characters that we know from the previous sequel, which was Halloween Kills. But uh, the one thing that the this particular series did was take off right from the original Halloween that John Carpenter had created with Deborah
They
Hill.
cut out everything in between.
They cut
Yeah.
out all the other sequels, even the Rob Zombie version.
Right.
It's kind of been wiped, the slate done, and then they went into Kills, and then we got Ends. We have Andy Matichak as Allison Nelson, Laurie's granddaughter, and Rowan Campbell as Corey Cunningham, a young man who accidentally murdered a child while he babysat. Though he was cleared of the charge, he was outcasted and had an encounter with Michael Myers, which leads him to becoming a serial killer himself. We have Will Poughton as a deputy, Frank Hawkins, a sheriff's deputy who arrested Michael following his initial killing spree in 1978. which is a true and tried character from the original Halloween movie that John Carpenter and Deborah Hill did.
Right.
We got Kyle Richards as Lindsay Wallace, one of the children Laurie babysat back in 1978, who survived an encounter with Michael in 2018. Now, the actress that played her is the same exact actress from that very first film that John Carpenter and Deborah Hill had done. We have next James Jude Courtney as Michael Myers / The Shape, as we all know. The masked figure who carried out the killing spree 40 years later in 2018 from 1978, obviously within Haddonfield. So James Jude Courtney is probably, well, hold on. How many actors has portrayed Mr. Michael Myers himself? A lot.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of them.
There's a whole lot.
Nick Castle was the first one, and then
Dick
so
Warlock.
many other people that I can't.
Dick Warlock was the second one, which was a stunt double that stunted for Kurt Russell for many a movie. There was
he also was Swamp Thing.
Really?
Yeah,
Dick Warlock. Oh. Okay.
No, you know what? I'm thinking of Dick Durock.
I was going to say, I met Dick
yeah,
Warlock, and Dick Warlock is still alive. Dick Durock, unfortunately, has passed away and was Swamp Thing. That's a whole new panels to pixels things that we talk about.
All right, cool.
But yeah, we've had several. I would say there had been at least a good 6 people that have portrayed Michael Myers over the course of these years of the Halloween series. One, of course, we're going to mention now, Nick Castle, who portrayed the character in the original 78 film,
right,
provides voiceover work for Michael's breathing and makes an unrelated cameo appearance in a party scene, apparently, within this particular film. So, which is pretty cool. And also, effects artist Chris has portrayed Michael Myers also on these films as well. Mr. Christopher Nelson himself, who did the effects for all 3 Halloween Kills, as well as Halloween Ends. So I have to look out for my friends who are out there in the effects department who actually also do podcasts. And his work was, I have to state, exemplary for the movies that he put out, because he's been around for a long time. He does great work. Well, now we're going to get into the scores that are out there for the particular movie. Rotten Tomatoes puts it at a 40%, and the audience puts it at a 57%. So it puts it a little bit above half.
Right.
So people still revere it to some degree for what it is. People probably enjoyed it a little bit, not so great. Maybe almost like an H.P. Lovecraft movie that was done in the late 80s and early 90s that had some okay effects for its time. So I would put it as like a B movie.
Sure.
But this movie actually did make some okay money. It made more than what it cost.
I was surprised that when you said it made that much money, but I'll tell you what, I feel like this movie, the way that it is put together, you could literally cut out Laurie Strode and Michael Myers and have a half decent movie, because it's like the story that it tells of this guy who is kind of like bullied a little bit, and he has this tragic issue. I love the fact that they started off with like automatically killing a kid. Any movie that starts off with killing a kid, I'm right there for it.
All right, so you like Pet Sematary too much too.
Assault on Precinct 13. Come on.
I know that, but I mentioned Pet Sematary because it's Stephen King.
Yeah, I like Pet Sematary too, but that was like that's a car accident. That could happen anytime, you know. So,
oh man, wow, I'm
talking about something actually, like somebody actually
killing.
Like this kid falls out of the.
Well, it was still an accident.
It was still an accident.
It's still an accident.
He was just kicking the door
while holding a knife.
Yeah.
That doesn't look guilty, but
he was trying to get in, and then the kid just boom, fell
the kid
over the balcony.
Him in the room, and
a very poorly designed house.
Quite frankly, you know what? That little kid deserved that.
Yeah. I would say yes. The kid was a dick, and he was being a dick to his babysitter.
Yes,
but obviously the parents didn't know exactly. All they saw what would happen
exactly,
and the very beat. Like they showed up at the worst moment at that time. They did not know what the situation was. Obviously, it didn't come through. The mother later on, we see she winds up and obviously spoilers, everybody. If you have not watched this movie,
come on,
why are you here?
We've already established that
this Halloween ends.
This podcast is never spoiler free.
No. But the fact is like later on at a party scene, she kind of ridicules the kid too.
Right.
Yeah. She goes after him
which you
the
can
bar.
understand. He's a murderer. She feels like he got away with it. She's got a couple of drinks in her, so you're gonna say some things sometimes.
But the father later on reiterates that he had seen him, and he goes, "That's not the same kid I knew growing up."
He's actually like, I was just gonna try to give him a chance. I didn't, I don't feel the same way as my wife. So
I mean, and I like that setup. I mean, I actually like that whole opening, and I thought it was done really well. Like the tension was there, the pacing was good.
Yeah.
But to me, it was like that was a great setup, but it didn't have the payoff. And I'm sure we're going to dig into it. And I think that was probably my biggest gripe. Like, I'm like, okay.
The writing to that point was good, but they didn't really get the payoff later on for confrontation purposes. All you got was like quick recaps from or one confrontation from the mother and then a recap from the father and how he felt about the whole situation. And it's been dismissed.
Speaking of the recap, how'd you guys feel about the whole recap at the start of the movie?
It felt like a Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Was it really necessary? We all knew what movie we were coming into.
It's filler. I hate when
you could have done the newspaper article like they did, 4 years ago. Killer's still on the loose. Nobody needs to go ahead and be going through like, oh, Michael Myers did it. And it sucks because in that intro, they actually have a good idea saying, oh, his evil infects people and showing how people were like in the town were kind of doing that.
That stemmed from the previous film, what they were trying to iterate throughout the film. When you have, of all things, Anthony Michael Hall playing Tommy Jarvis, which wasn't even the original actor in the particular film, but yet in this particular film, they get the original girl that I guess PJ Souls was babysitting for in the original 1978 version. And actually I talked to PJ about that. I'm like, well, they hired her, but why didn't they hire her? And they said, oh, quote unquote, they couldn't find the original actor. Yes, they did reach out to him. He just didn't have the look or appeal. And then they could easily get somebody like Anthony Michael Hall to play the character.
Right.
I think it would have been great for nostalgic purposes, having the same actor or kid actor coming back and reprise their role. I think they lost that in Halloween Kills. And that's really what bothered the hell out of me throughout that particular film. But we're talking about Halloween Ends.
But we're trying not to. See, that's the problem.
It's hard to because we didn't cover Kills, so we got to go into Ends. Rob had asked me. He goes, "Oh, did you watch Kills?" Of course, I watched Kills, but he started with Ends because Ends was the last one and came out within this past year or so. So he wanted to go for it. But we could always bring up Kills. Kills does relate to this particular film in the sense that Michael's like the evil within Michael spread within the
Right.
town, and that's what they were trying to convey. That's why they grew into a mob mentality around
Yes.
Halloween. And then once they heard about Michael killing on a killing spree again, and he's still out there, which technically, if you think about it, it was the same night, just like in the original Halloween 2,
Yes.
because he's
It's
still
the
out
same night
there.
in Halloween 2.
And
Yes.
it's kind of a reflection within the original Halloween 2 that came out, because Laurie was stuck in a hospital. People were being taken in. They were in the triage in the ER. We had the guy originally that was in The Last Starfighter there hitting on Laurie because he liked her in that particular film.
Right.
I'm forgetting that actor's name, but
Lance Guest.
there you go. Thank you for telling me that, because I know you're a fan. But it's the same format in a sense from the original 78 version into Halloween 2 from Halloween to Halloween Kills. So Halloween 2018 going right into Halloween Kills.
Right.
Which they gave the mob mentality, but people couldn't understand it. It was like, oh, it became like a disease that they consumed the darkness and became a mob mentality. And that's why they were starting to do these things. And we get a whole riot within the hospital too.
Right.
And Laurie's there hurt, but she's an elderly woman in this case, in comparison to the original second, where it was her the same night, but as a teenager.
Yeah.
So I think their writing was a little off. They shouldn't have done it. They should have just said, oh, she healed. She went back to her house, barricaded it up, got more weapons.
Yeah.
Even though it burnt down, she got a newer house and got more weapons and was preparing for the shape to come back again. And then somehow Michael was alive and then he could come back again, because it was always the mystery of the shape or Michael Myers that always ran through from the original sequel series. But with this, they could do realism within the writing for kills and then come back to, okay, it's Halloween Ends. And now he's far older. He's like, what, 68?
Right.
At this
He's
point?
in good shape. Yeah. The shape's in good shape.
The shape's in good shape.
Yeah, because in the first movie, he's supposed to be like 28 years old.
Yeah. So he's way older. And he's having breathing problems. He's got to check his blood and his cholesterol and his blood pressure and all that good stuff. But then, and other people's blood pressure. But we'll move on into our next topic, because we kind of talked it into a storm and digressed way too much, even though we're like 27 minutes into this thing. When we heard of this movie coming out, what was your expectations? So, Adam, we'll start with you, Frank, and then I'll go.
Okay.
Honestly, I mean, I wasn't crazy about the previous one, and I'm like, it's two things are going to happen. They're going to clean up anything that they probably thought they should have had tightened up from the second one and then put a nice conclusion, or release a movie that was released. And I definitely, I mean, I wanted to see it because it was the conclusion. So I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm already invested. Let's see. We're probably never going to get, Jamie Lee Curtis in what, like this. This will very well be her very last movie. I'm sure she's never going to do it again. So to me, I was that was my quote unquote expectations. It was more about like just the finality of it. I didn't know. I had no idea what they were going to do for the second one, and that would have been like a completely different direction than what I probably would have written. So I really had no idea what they were going to do for the next one. Like outside of what they were showing in the trailer, I'm like, well, it could be also very misleading because, which it was and wasn't. I don't know. I mean, I wanted to see it more because I felt like I just wanted that conclusion. Yeah.
All right. So I also did not like the second one. The first one's great. I was all hyped up for that one. I was like, I saw that in the theater.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh man, this is a callback to the original Halloween. This is something that's actually got some bones to it. And then the second one comes out, and you're like, what in the hell is this? So I was not, when I heard of the third one, I was like, quite frankly, I hadn't seen the third one until today. I literally watched it today
Really?
while I was working.
Oh wow! So you avoided it all this time.
I avoided it all this time because I so disliked the second one and the direction that they went with it.
Okay.
Especially like killing off the daughter. I was like, you could have
I
just
was
killed
upset
off Laurie
about that.
Strode.
Yeah.
You could have killed her off and made it where like the daughter becomes like her.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And
Yep.
that would have been a more
think
interesting
Adam
story.
and I are under the same thought process of they could have rewritten that so that maybe Jamie Lee had passed away from a heart attack because she couldn't suffer. You know, she suffered from her wounds, the agony and everything, and she could have passed away. And then Judy Greer's character, who played her daughter, would continue on because she started to see the fight process within her mother that night when they were being hauled away in the back of a pickup after all the chaos.
And I love Judy Greer. She's a great actress.
She's a wonderful actress, beautiful woman.
Yep.
Very intelligent, has been around the, TV and film. Yeah. And you know her face and you know her like wit when it comes to her character.
Yes.
And I think it was a character that was just dispatched too easily.
Yeah.
And in the second film, and I thought I was disappointed in Kills because of that, because it was a waste.
Well, I mean, so I guess the way I would have done it, but then it probably would have hurt the third movie, was I probably would have killed off Jamie Lee Curtis in the second one.
Yes.
I would have too.
Same here.
Keep her daughter alive for the third one, but then she dies in the third one, where Allison Nielsen, the one that plays the granddaughter, becomes like the new Jamie Lee Curtis.
Correct.
And then what's his name? Rohan Campbell, the one that played Corey Cunningham.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He could have taken on the new persona of
Tommy Jarvis?
Of Michael Myers.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And,
I could
and
see
then,
that. That's the direction I thought they were going to go.
That's what I thought they were doing. And I was on that train for a little bit in this third movie. I was like, okay, if it's not going to go that direction, then I expect everybody to be dead.
Oh, okay.
But and then at that point, it's like, hey, then if you want to continue the franchise, cool. You got fresh new actors.
You got a new Michael Myers
from the original.
Yeah.
So it still feels like a continuation, and it's still part of the whole babysitter murder lore, because they started off the movie that way.
Yeah.
Right.
But they didn't do that.
No.
No, they didn't.
When I heard about this movie coming out, I was still on with the bad taste in my mouth from, with Halloween Kills. And I'm thinking they need to do some serious writing fixing within this. Now, like Adam, you stated before, and I agreed with you, with the introduction done very well. They could have omitted the whole the prologue of like in the very beginning of how everything happens, like a Crystal Lake murder from like Friday the 13th. Jason Voorhees was born. No, we don't need that. We already know the story because we've seen Halloween 2018. Dependent, no matter if you were a Generation Xer like Frank and myself, anybody else a generation after us, or even the new kids that are out there, they're able to go see these films. They already know the lore because they grew up on this, because they watched those original movies. Why do that? It's, if you look in the dictionary and you look up redundant, you know what it says?
Yes.
Redundant. So don't do it. Just eliminate that. So they could have cut to, and like you stated before, they could have, and I agree with you, Adam, as far as like getting rid of Jamie, they could have gotten rid of her.
Right.
And then killed her off screen, or show that she went into a cardiac arrest, and then everything falls in the part of Andy or Allison at this point, not Andy, because Andy's the actress. But and then I thought Rowan, instead of being the killer, he could have been more of like a Tommy Jarvis type, doing something of trying to help and infatuated with Andy. They didn't have to have him involved with the killing of a kid or a child dying in the very beginning of the movie and him being misconstrued. It could have been him of his infatuation with Allison, and then they are babysitting themselves, like with other kids, just
Right.
like her grandmother had done. And then her giving back, and she could still be a nurse. And then he could be the unrequited love friend who would be Tommy Jarvis type. And then have it so that way and kills you have the shape come back. You have Michael come back and then the first house he attacks literally is like maybe a third person, a friend of theirs. And then it's literally Halloween from 78 over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, the cycle, I said redundant. It could be redundant, but the thing is, history repeats itself. And it's just Michael going back in his mind in his craziness, and he's doing the same thing over and over again. Now, mind you, what they did right within the first particular film was with the 2018 film was saying that there was that whole conspiracy of like Michael being Laurie's brother, which was in the original, sequels and trilogies and everything. And they kind of dismissed it, which was great because it would just be happenstance that this all just happened.
Right. They said that, but that's all a story.
Yeah. Exactly. And this could still be something where it's another happenstance where it just so happens that Allison and her friends get attacked, and then we move in, and then we get to this point by Halloween ends, they're struggling and surviving. It would be great, but we didn't get anything like that. It's all within the writing, and I'm like, I could be making a fan cast and a fan story based, but like I said, it's in the writing. The execution from the actors were done well,
right,
and the effects were done very well. So Christopher, yes, I'm backing you up, Mr. Nelson. We do love your work. I do love your work.
No, those were some really good kills.
Yeah.
Like I particularly like the one with the disc jockey, or that he's mean to them at one point, and then he goes and he bashing his head into the thing, and then they cut his tongue off. I was like, yeah, there you go.
But what I would like to do is, if they did with ends, they could have easily done something completely different. They could have gotten rid of them. Now, mind you, did I like the ending and what they did, the symbolism of what they had done? It kind of took me out of it because I felt I was watching the death of Freddy again, where like she basically takes the knives and puts them in his hands like a cross, and then like crushes his leg so he's there, and then she winds up like cutting his throat and cutting his wrists. Okay, right. All right, we got the whole thing of salvation of her trying to get redemption for this. You did this to me, you tortured me. Okay, interesting enough, but that could have been done through Allison as well,
right,
or another character that was tortured throughout the years, because we've seen that with Jamie Lloyd within the original sequels, which was oddly enough Laurie Strode's daughter. But yeah, but I like that idea. There's certain elements that I did like within the film. It's just the writing of the characters, and I think you topped it off too, Frank, and both Adam. That's like about a love story.
Yes.
Yeah, between Allison and Corey.
I think that you could have started off with the whole thing that happened to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then have the love story. It didn't have to be like, you literally could take Michael Myers. He's in the movie for like 10 minutes total. Okay, so you could take him out of the movie, take Jamie Lee Curtis out of the movie as well.
Yeah.
Go with the hey, here's the town outcast. He seems like he's a nice guy, but yet there's still that little bit of darkness to him, and that starts to grow because everybody keeps picking on him. And that when he gets thrown over the bridge, I was like, you know what? You could have gone ahead and said like something like, "Oh, he hit his head, and because he hit his head, it changed his personality, and he decided to start killing people." And I think that would have been a more interesting movie with her trying to either because it seemed like she couldn't make up her mind, like she was going to be with him, or was she bothered by the whole thing that he was doing? And I like the one thing that he did that I really liked was that he goes and he frames Laurie Strode for he's like, well, if I can't have her,
Yeah. Yeah, I liked his take on this character. I thought it was very believable. That's one thing. Like
the acting
I did
was
not
good.
for a second think that like his character wasn't in pain or was very confused on what was happening around him. I did like the connection between him and Laurie. Like they had like that shared experience. And that's the thing, like there was so much good buildup, and then he dies at the end. And I'm like, why would you like set up this like this could have been, like I said, this could have been that new Michael Myers.
Correct.
Because honestly, I think everyone thought that's what was going to happen. And when you took that away, you're like, okay, so you took it away. What are you going to replace that with? And then it's like, oh, now we get Michael.
Back.
Well, we've been waiting for him this whole time, but now you're going to give it to us after we're going to give us something else.
We got geriatric Michael going around trying to kill people. Now, mind you, Corey winds up pulling off the same kill that Michael does in the original movie.
Yeah.
By stabbing somebody to the wall and doing the head tilt. And okay, all right. So we're doing this for fans? Just to get that glory of that? No, we've seen it before. But in this case, you're making him look like a half-wit killer. And I want to be a copycat. And okay, we've seen this before in Scream. And been done. Wes Craven has done that. Now we have 6 Scream movies. And I'm sure Wes is probably rolling around in his grave. But
oh yeah.
But to me, it would always be the original Scream movie that was done very well, just very much like Halloween, done very well, perfect.
Yeah,
just don't jump on it. Now, if they brought Matthew Lillard back, that would be a different story for me.
Well, and that's the thing. You finally got the original person, right? So like that bar was already set. This wasn't a remake.
Yeah.
But like it was like and then you even had the extra bar set for yourself that you chose to ignore a whole other set of movies. So they really didn't have anything holding them back. They cleared the playing field where they could be cool.
Yeah.
We could write something new. We say at what state everything is in right now. We're not really relying on, we have to make sure that forget about her son, which I don't know where he went. Like they weren't bound to anything.
Yeah.
And even with that, they definitely, the second and third one are like one movie. The first one, if you just watch that, and like to me that should have been Halloween Ends. That should have been Halloween Ends. I love the way it ended. The fire in the basement. You burn evil. That's what you do, right? Like that's what. And anytime there's a demon or evil figure, you burn it. And the 3, and then her lineage is standing there. The grandmother, the daughter, and the granddaughter.
Yeah.
Like to me, if anything, this almost should have been like reversed the whole movie. It's almost like you should have had these movies in reverse and end with the regular Halloweens, which, like I said, I have a feeling the first one was going to be it.
Yeah.
And then when they saw the success, they were like, oh, we gotta make these next 2 work, but
we gotta do it. We gotta
do it again. And it's kind of like what they did with the Matrix. I love the Matrix trilogy, by the way, but the first one is very different from the second and third one. And the second and third one feel like the same movie, where the first one is like its own bubble.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I mean, Mark, I echo it. You know, all the acting was fine, the kill scenes were
Right.
cool,
Yeah.
but
The
it's
gags
the
were good.
story, you know.
It's the story, the characters within the story itself that they intertwined. Now they could have omitted the idea of Allison's infatuation, dating this guy. It's like a Bad Friends episode of Big Bang Theory, and meeting some weird, strange guy, and then and obviously set up by her grandmother.
Right.
But and to me, it was like, and then you got the
And it's
typical
kind of,
horror cliches in it too,
yeah,
where
it's
it's
kind of
like
wild because she's so into it. He's a
that.
guy who was supposed to have killed like a kid, and she's
Yeah,
just like, I want him.
yeah, yeah, and it's like I like the nerdy, geeky kind of guy that's outcasted,
Yeah.
but it's like cliched, and don't go there. Just change it up a little bit. It's not even modern at this point. This is pretty much writing based upon 80s, 90s
Right.
at that point, and even somewhat to the late 70s. But that's that particular character design. We're in a new millennium, and I think that should also, because of the fact that he didn't even have a car. Oh, I have a bicycle. Oh, I don't need my
I
bicycle
got a
anymore. I
motorcycle.
got a motorcycle. I was like, really? What the hell? It's like, oh, you're a badass now because you have a motorcycle. To me, it's like that was bad writing in that respect for the character. Now, mind
Yeah.
you, it showed his charm as far as knowing how to fix a vehicle, show his charm in how to gain her respect and infatuation. But it I felt a lot of loss within it, and it's not
For
like I
sure.
stated it's not due to the actors. And I try to stress this too, because I've known and met actors, because they were given parts and they are far beyond that particular part that they got criticized heavily for.
Right.
They've done better in other roles, but I'm like, it's just the writing, and the writing within the character for within the particular scenes. And they could have cut it in half. A
Yeah.
lot of these particular scenes could be cut in half to move more to a better, I hate saying it because it is a slasher film, a killing spree. Show
Right.
more Michael.
Mhm.
Show
Yeah,
how
because that's what we
what
came for.
a demon is, this demon faced person that we don't see until the very end, after he's
Right.
demasked, and then killed like he is, and then
Another
cut and
wasted
quartered.
opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another wasted opportunity that they had was the mom, the whole relationship that he had with his mom, in the and her boyfriend, I guess, or because I don't think he was his dad, but like she was so like crazy to him, and he's like, I hope you find love. Like he's giving him, like he's giving him the motorcycle, like, don't tell her about the motorcycle.
Yeah. Uh-oh. All right. I think we digressed to a lot of this, and Rob's going to be
Yes, we
listening to
did.
this and going, he went all over the place, but it's integral to the idea of what we talk about. So let's go into the idea of the posters. So, what did you think of the actual poster design? Because there have been several out, and usually it's Laurie and Michael back to back, and Michael having the knife down and her arms down. You got the one of Michael himself with just the shape of the mask with the collar out. There's a whole bunch of them out there, but the most is it just shows ends and then Michael's face. But there's the one back to back, which I've seen too, which is it's just like, hold on, we got Laurie Strode. Oh, hold on, we got Michael too. And it just doesn't seem.
And that's a freaking lie, because you barely get that in this movie.
Correct.
Okay. So you know what? Yeah, they're standing back to back because they barely see each other. That's exactly how they are, back to back, not able to see each other in eye to
Yeah.
eye.
Yeah. My friend Kirk Manley could actually come up with his own specific design, as well as the Rob. Rob, as a graphic designer himself, could
Right.
easily create his own within images of thoughts within the movie and create something original that doesn't specifically put Laurie front and center, but show her in the mix, as well as Michael overbearing, and then having the other characters that are pretty much important within the movie.
Yeah.
And then you could also do something mysterious.
Yeah.
Like just like the
Well,
old
they have
pumpkin, the old pumpkin with like maybe the shape mask in front of it, and
Right.
just put a knife in the middle of it and saying ends.
Well, they
you
have
know,
the ones that are with just Michael's face. So that would have, that's a better poster, I think, than the one that actually shows Laurie. Granted,
the
it's not a better in that he's again not really in the movie for that long.
Yeah.
And Adam just sent another Halloween
yeah,
ends. Yeah, there you go. That's a good one.
there was these two. I mean, it's hard to look at them. These two I didn't really see being publicized, but there's two versions where it's a recreation of one of the originals,
original.
but like
Right.
Correct.
his face is reflecting off the knife, and it looks, I guess, it's Laurie holding the knife. I thought that would have been a really cool
Yeah.
main poster. And then there was another one with another reflection where splitting their face down the middle.
With the
Those
knife.
two I like
Yeah.
a lot. But the main one that you're talking about, Mark, the one that I saw in the theater, which is it was like a Marvel movie poster.
Yeah.
It didn't if he wasn't holding a knife in his hand, you wouldn't know that this was a horror movie.
Right.
Now comparing it to the original 2018 one that came out, those posters are really cool. Like it was very muted, and they felt like they were updated, but they were calling back to the original. But I don't know, like I wasn't crazy about the main posters that were being used. But the ones that were doing like, some cool effects with like the knife reflections, those were pretty neat. I felt like they were showing like the split personality, or like how they kind of like complete each other type of thing, which if that would have been a big symbolism in the movie,
right,
that would have been a really awesome story, how like they basically are two sides of the same knife, if you want to say something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, again, probably just like the movie, like there was a lot going on with the posters as well as the movie, and you didn't know where to really lie your emotions in, basically.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the next topic of choice. Well, did this movie live up to the legacy of the original Halloween franchise? We kind of discussed this in length a little bit already, but I think it stems in the same category of what it always has, excluding the Rob Zombie cut, because he only had 2 movies. But the original sequel series, this kind of stems in the same franchise base within it, even though there's 3 and the original was about 6 sequels or 5 sequels and 1 original from the very beginning. So you have the original Halloween from 1978, and then you had 5 sequels. And then you have this where it's like you have the original Halloween 2018, let's say, and then we had 2 sequels. So the first one out of each, like 78 and 2018, great movies to start off and kick it off, right? And then its subsequent sequels became worse.
Right.
Because they just kept like going to that fodder of just like draining the I always say the series dry.
Yeah.
It gets to that point. It's like they didn't really want to get more into more creativity. It was more of Avi Arad saying, "Make me more money." And is a foreign accent. Make me more money. I love Michael. Make me the money that Michael gives me. But that's just my opinion. So everybody could yell at me for saying that, because I've seen Avi Arad interviewed, and he has that ability of like, hey, I love this, I'm just gonna try to keep burying it, but it it's not quantity, you want quality.
Right.
And it's very much like what Marvel is dealing with now with their, with the MCU
Yeah.
and with Disney
They're
Plus.
oversaturating it.
They're oversaturating the market. The stories are dwindling. Some of the effects and stuff are on the sidebar, and then sometimes you get some decent quality story points within these particular movies, but it's not executed properly within the overall story arc to make it work
Right.
proper. And I'm that's how I always felt about her. Now, mind you, you're also talking about a person on his own podcast that covered, Jason X out of the Friday the
Hey, hey,
13th
hey.
franchise. I enjoyed it because of what it was,
Do not start
but
with Jason X, man. I love that movie.
I actually like that movie a lot.
I'm not saying I didn't
It's just
enjoy
a
it.
fun movie to watch.
It's a fun movie because it made fun of
Yes.
itself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very much like Leprechaun in space.
Yes.
But the thing is that the Friday the 13th saga of sequels that came out long after 4, it became a joke upon itself, or it just became watered and filtered down, where they were just looking for money for that Halloween experience or summer movie magic with a slasher film. And then I think that's how these last 2 films were. They were putting a lot of money into it, and they got great effects out of it. The music was great.
Mm-hmm.
The actors were very good for what they were given, but it's the story overall that suffered nonetheless, and
Right.
leaves us going, okay, are we rebooting this again?
I mean,
And
if you look at like just the release dates, right? 2018, and then the next one comes out 3 years later, right? So
yes,
plenty of time for them to drum up like, okay, like how we're gonna make this work if it's a sequel, a reboot continuation sequel. And then the next one comes out a year later. So that's a very short amount of time. I mean, did they film these 2 movies back to back? I'm not really sure like the production schedule on that, but
no,
the fact that one came out in 2021 and the next one came out in 2022,
those were back to back.
Those were
that.
back to back.
they were
Yes.
pretty. Usually there's at least a 2-year gap between some of these movies, and maybe they just wanted to. I don't know.
They
I don't know
wanted
what
to
they were trying
stamp it,
catch.
get it out there, and make sure
Yeah.
it gets done. And it's like putting it on a lunchbox and starting to sell it. I start to sound like, Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park. And then you're selling.
Selling.
But the thing is that they should have waited.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
give it a couple more years, sit on it, let it gestate a bit, come up with a more significant story to get your audience's attention. But that's
Right.
just my feeling. So on Rob's agenda, which I'm also looking at right now, it says, what did you think of the story? So we kind of interrupted
Gone
and
over
put
that.
this a little bit, but
I think we spoke about it.
yeah, the isolation, did the character of Lori being back in society seem natural? It never is natural, in my opinion.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Okay. And then next one, he says, did we need more Michael Myers? Well, obviously, yes.
Yeah.
Unanimously, we all say yes. We need more Michael and more killing. All right. Next one. Did we need more gory kills? Of course we
Yes.
did. Because Mr. Christopher Nelson will not have a job. And he came up with 3 masks. And the burning mask was probably one of the best that he had came up with. The charred one,
Yeah.
he puts it on his Instagram. So everybody check that out. Check
Yeah.
Christopher Nelson's Instagram. And it's pretty cool. He's a really cool cat to talk to. By the way,
And if
you can listen to him on, and this is a cheap pop by me, and Rob could yell at me later for this, but the thing with 2 heads with Christopher Nelson and Sean Clark. And Chris does talk about his effects stuff during the podcast. especially Halloween, by the way.
And if you think about it, the only time that I really found myself enjoying the movie was when when he's killing people, when Michael Myers is there.
Well, that's the whole point of a slasher
people.
film.
Exactly, right.
It's not like you're watching the movie I'm Madman.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, I went back in time and I pulled something. If you listeners want to go check that out, it's an old film. You probably can't find it anywhere.
It's very hard to find.
I have it on digital download as well as a DVD.
Is it harder to find than Michael in his last movie? What's harder to find?
Michael Myers. He was hiding with the hermit, the hobo that helped him out in the sewer. All right. The next question he has is, did the message about violence in media need to be in this movie? Well, I think the message of violence in media is always there and it's apparent. And it's just part of the whole story. It's always going to be there for this kind of movie.
Yeah. Somebody's going to bring it up. Somebody's going to talk about, oh, well, if we didn't have all of this, we wouldn't have all of this. Really? What version of Halloween did Jack the Ripper watch? I'm just wondering.
They didn't have any back then. Jack the Ripper was making his own movies in his head as he was.
Any Dreadfuls. They're going to blame it on that shit.
There you go. How would you compare this to the last two movies? Well, we kind of spoke about that. Obviously, Kills gave us some sort of hopefulness. There was something lost. And this one was just as bad. As far as story is concerned, in my opinion. But you guys, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, same.
Okay. Okay, this is an interesting question that Rob brought up that I'll bring up too. Did Michael Myers transfer his evil just by looking at Corey? No.
And I agree, no.
However,
I do think that it would have been an awesome part of the story if he'd had, because I feel like when he looks at him, he doesn't put his evil into him.
Mm-hmm.
He sees this guy's evil. And I was hoping at that point that he would be like, yeah, I threw that kid off that freaking banister. I threw him. I did throw him over there. I didn't do it by accident. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It sounded to me like with this, like the way Rob had projected the question, very similar to what they were trying to portray within the original series sequels with Jamie Lloyd. Oh, she's his niece. Oh, right. He projected this, and it just transfers back to Jamie. So Michael transferred his evil to Jamie. No, I think this kid is just all kinds of messed up. He's all messed up, kind of like they say in the Night of the Living Dead. Hey, officer, what's going on out there? Oh, it's like it's all messed up.
They're dead. They're all messed up.
And the fact that he was like a sidekick, that's actually not believable because Michael killed everybody. Yeah, you know, he had no sympathy for anyone, and even the mental capacity of him having a protege, it's just unrealistic. It's not becoming of that character.
No, it's not at all.
It should have been more about Corey choosing to take that personification of the Michael Myers lore and then just continuing it because he's either infatuated or whatever it is. But I don't think there should have been like this transfer of Bluetooth evil. You know, it's just
Bluetooth evil.
Yeah, it just I mean,
he held his button a little bit so it could beep out, so that way he could grasp Michael's awareness.
Yeah, they bumped phones. They bumped phones and airdropped the evil to each other.
All right. One other thing he brings up is, what was the running time too much? Now, this movie's 111 minutes.
I feel like if we didn't have the running time we have, we wouldn't have had Michael.
Yeah.
Because if you cut off, like, say, a half an hour, there goes his whole part.
Like, literally, he was a guest in his own film, in my opinion.
Yes.
So, but that, because Halloween film is not Halloween without Michael Myers. So they
No.
just like gave
Halloween 3
this.
proved that.
Yeah, I know. What did you think of the cinematography? Well, I'll wait till last. So Adam, you go first.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't something that like I was sitting down and criticizing. I thought visually the movie was fine.
Yeah.
Mm,
It had a good tone, color grade. When it needed to be dark, it was dark. When you needed to see what was going on, you saw it. Um, yeah, I mean, I thought the cinematography was fine. It it was definitely an updated look. Like it looked newer.
yeah,
I don't know if it was as gritty as the first one
no,
in the trilogy, but at the same time, I guess it matched the perspective, like Laurie trying to be back into society, so it had a little bit of a cleaner look to it. But it was fine. There was nothing distracting about it or anything that was off-putting. It was just you're straightforward. It was clean. I don't know. Yeah, it was fine.
Frank.
Looked good on an iPhone. No. That's literally how I watched it today.
Honestly, I have a 65-inch OLED TV. I have like a 5.0. I can't do 5.1. Sorry, I can't put a subwoofer in my apartment because my neighbors would kill me. But audio wise, it sounded good for me as far as like the effects. And I like Foley work, and I've worked on Foley
Right.
work and films at one point. The music was great by John Carpenter and his
Yeah.
son.
Yes.
So just to add that, Carpenter and his son would
Yeah.
did the music for this particular film. And the cinematography, I liked how they cued in the shots for specific scenes and how we see Michael when he's pinned down. The motorcycle, the movement scenes, especially over the bridge when Corey was attacked by those kids
Right.
and thrown over and everything else. A lot of specific shots and scenes were done very well. And as far as like what you were saying, Adam, with the color grading, they always have like a haziness, but it's always a digital haziness. We don't get that much of saturation when we get from natural light from analog recording like we used to back in the day. And I'm one of those believers that, we should still have analog recording in film, as not just in the film itself, but also an analog recording when it comes to audio as well. Maybe it's just me and something when I worked in recording studios and doing live sound. I just love the feel of tape hiss and
Yeah.
hearing that and how things do leak, because I've been on a set of a movie where I'd actually record footsteps as like a Foley work and then isolate a woman's voice with like packing blankets and make like a little fort for her to do her dialogue on site in the middle of a woods, and it comes out perfect in comparison to like a studio. I think the guerrilla recording, like they did in the original 78, because if you watch the documentary about how they did the original Halloween, get back to that rudimentary filming style
Right.
as well as the on-site like writing. I think you're a lot of filmmakers, like what happened within this series, they filled in a lot and it sucks. They're putting too much in because they're feeling that their audience is too smart. But you don't have to put too much in your film to make people be suspenseful or thrilling. And one piece of like slasher movie, I would say art would be Psycho 2. Go
Yeah.
back and watch Psycho 2 compared to the 65 version of Psycho with
Yeah.
Hitchcock, or what was that year? But two different movies completely, two different decades,
Yeah.
or from what it was, but done very well. With the most littlest thing that you could do, you could actually create cinematic gold with, in my opinion.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think they could do that, but I think they overthought it. Oh,
It's another tragedy of this movie because it's competently shot.
Yeah,
The actors are good. So why
they
does
put
it
them.
suck so bad?
Yeah, the writing.
I mean, one
Yeah,
thing
it's
I
writing.
would give
Yeah.
it to is I saw a horror movie recently. We'll just call it Mexorcist, Believer. And
I've yet to watch that, dude.
all
Don't.
right, let's just say I hate when they use CGI in a horror movie. That's all I'm saying.
Practical
I
effects is my
I
love
can't
too.
stand it. And that one thing I would give this movie, besides the very end where he's in the metal chipper, which I think was the worst way to kill this character.
Mm,
Um, which I'm sure that I don't know if that was practical or not. Maybe there was parts of it that was practical, but that's one thing I do give it. Like, you feel the killing scenes when they're there.
yeah,
Right.
Like everything is there. They actually have the stage blood and all that stuff. So like all the elements were there. Like they actually had all the pieces, which was great. Like, you had the
yeah,
golden cast, you had, I mean, although everything was digital, it wasn't distracting, like you can
Right.
hear everything clearly, you can see everything clearly. One thing I would say about the score in the movie was great. I wasn't crazy about whatever song they used in the trailer. It didn't it just felt too blockbustery, if that's like a term. Um,
forced, I would say.
yeah, it felt a little bit too epic,
Mm,
like
Right.
they were giving it like a Marvel feel to it, and I was like,
and
yeah, you gotta tone it down. Like we're not here to
Well,
see a
that's what they
Marvel movie.
did.
Like he's
Like
not a
in
superhero, you know.
yeah, in
uh,
all of the trailers, they're building up to like, oh yeah, it's this epic battle between Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. Y'all been waiting for it. Here it comes,
it's
and then
not.
you get to it, and it's
Yeah,
like, that's it.
yeah, it's not like Ash versus Jason
Okay.
versus Michael Myers.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, that we only got to see in comics, by the way.
Yeah.
We did only get to see it in comics.
What did you think of the music and score of this film? I think we're unanimous in feeling that the score was done well within the
Yes.
movie itself. I think that John Carpenter always comes back and does his, and it's a testament to the original work that he had done from the original film. And you still get the same score, but it's done a little bit more
Right.
modern. So it still holds true. Certain scenes had a little bit more minor and slower tones and meant specifically, which I actually narrowed down when I listened to it when I was watching the movie. And for like themes for like Corey, themes for Allison, themes for Lori itself, they were there. So they kind of set a tone. You have to actually, I hate saying it because I worked in music for so long. My ears just get drawn to the music, and I look at the visual, and then I just hone in on it. Sometimes I'll close my eyes. Yeah, you could lose it, but on a second viewing, you feel it, and then you could feel the tone of what's going on for the character. And I think that John did that well with his son.
No, yeah, I
No,
mean,
I think
same.
we've already said,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
the music is good. Yeah.
He has here 5 things you would change. I think we already gone through that, but we would.
We've gone through that.
Okay. Sorry,
Michael,
Rob.
Michael, and Michael.
Add
Oh,
more Michael and
Laura.
Michael.
Michael Laurie, and Michael.
And I think we've already talked about 5 things that worked within this movie, which literally is the cast worked well,
Right.
the
The
as far as what
direction.
and the direction that they were given as far as like that, not the writing, obviously. The
No, the
music,
writings. Yeah.
the visual capability of what's going on, and every time Michael
Kills.
is on screen.
Yeah, the kills, man.
Yeah.
The kills were good.
Well, it's called Halloween Kills.
It's ends. Halloween ends.
Ends the kills.
Yeah, it ends the kills.
All right. This is an interesting one that we always get to every podcast. Who would you change in the cast?
I mean, for the story that they gave us, I mean, obviously a lot of this cast came from the previous film, so I wouldn't change any of those people.
Same here.
I thought the introduction of that the actor who played Corey, like I said, I thought he did a really good job. Like he was
Right.
very believable in his role, and Like I said, the disappointment was not having him continue or whatever story arc he was going to have. You know, they didn't really give it the justice that he was giving to the character. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The cast was fine. There was nothing, that stood out to me that was like, oh, I could see Ryan Reynolds as, Michael Myers, or it's yeah, there was nothing that stood out for me for that.
As
Yeah,
far as me, the cast, I'm the same. I wouldn't really change anything. I think they wasted an opportunity with this actor. They could have given him more to do other than just trying to be like, oh, you're going to be the bargain basement Michael Myers.
yeah.
You're gonna come in, you're gonna act like like you're this nice guy, but deep down you're kind of a bad guy. And I
Hmm.
think you did good with that.
I wouldn't change any of the cast, honestly. I think they're all talented in what they could do. It's just that it was what was given to him on the written text from the script. And this is not me bashing anybody on the WGA. This is me stating flat out, it could have been rewritten. And I think it was
Oh,
kind of
for sure.
rushed. And this could have been a second or third draft of this particular film. And they needed a little bit more time to revise and rethink of what story that they wanted to present and how to put what character into what position. Now, they're also left off of what they got from the previous sequel, which was Halloween Kills. So they were trying to make do with what they had. Obviously, you have some of the same writers, but that's where I think you would need somebody to. I'm forgetting what Carrie Fisher used to do. Adam, you might know. She used to do things with screenplays, and she would be a screenplay doctor back in the day.
Oh, like oh my God, I know what you're saying. It's now I can only hear the word screen doctor.
Yeah, that's literally what she did. She would spec scripts and look at them and look at the story and look at the characters and how they were written, and then make comments and then rewrite them for people. And you would not believe what she would do because she created gold with that. And some of those movies went
Right.
on to make Oscars too.
Yeah, it's not like a I forgot like the exact title, but it's like a screen editor
Yeah.
or
Not script doctor.
no, no, that you need a degree for. Uh yeah, I mean,
You think so?
Yeah, you have a lot of people who are like, armchair quarterbacks that'll just make their own anyway.
Yeah, and unfortunately, unlike us, those people actually have power to make changes in the movie.
That they do. All right. Well, with that, I think we kind of drove it in. But yeah, we got an idea of what, and I think everybody listening has an idea. What part of this movie would make a good home theater demo? Now, you have a variety of different scenes that would work. Which one would work for you?
I like the one where he gets like his first kill back in the sewer. I thought it was pretty good. You get like some ambient sounds of like the sewer, but then like the music kind of kicks in
That's
pretty
what I was thinking too.
intense.
Okay.
I that like rebirth of him in that scene. Is it like gonna shake your whole room? Probably not, but I just think like just the intensity of the visuals with the music. I think the music is what's really gonna push it out of anything.
I have one which would be the Laurie and Corey confrontation when a fight ensues because of her trying to get him to understand who he is. And it was just after that major kill where he does the head tilt.
Right.
Because that is like with the breathing and everything else that's involved and the music, it works out. Now, mind you, it has to be in very dark quarters, everybody. That you have to watch it.
Since I don't really work in sound like you guys did, but I think that the when he actually gets back at the bullies in the junkyard,
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
That
that's a good
actually
one.
would probably be something that you could use pretty well for a demo.
Pretty
I
cool.
changed my answer. It's going to be that one.
Yeah,
Frank's
because
like,
him
no
like running the
backsies.
girl over and with
Backsies.
with the fencing and stuff. So
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right. Well, I think we've reached about the end of this particular podcast. You can find our podcast. So obviously, you can find this particular podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or whatever apps, podcast player of choice that you use. You could find us. All you have to do is search for Fantasy Picks Movie Edition. You could email us. So let us know what you think of our podcast and how we are doing, what you would like to see, and what we could change. So you could email us at fantasypicksmovieedition@gmail.com, where you can meet us on Instagram. And I believe it's at Fantasy Picks Movie Edition on Instagram. And then obviously you could email us at fantasypicksmovieedition@gmail.com for any comments, thoughts, criticisms, anything. And obviously, with all these podcast player choices that you have out there, Apple Podcasts is the best way to rate and review this particular podcast. So, if so, give 5 stars if you love what we do. And please tell a friend because, word of mouth gets everything along, and a lot of people like to hear what you have to talk about, if you love the podcast or you recommend it. So with that, this is the point in the podcast of where could people hear or see you. So Adam, where could people find you?
Gildedharbor.com, GILDED harbor.com. That's where you can find past and current movie projects, as well as links to all of our social media. And we're, it's mainly like Instagram and Facebook. That's our main go-to places.
Awesome. Frank, where could we hear you?
I can be found here on Fantasy Picks Movie Edition. I can at times be heard on Adrenaline Cinema podcasts.
Correct.
And also Panels to Pixels.
You can find me here as well on Fantasy Picks Movie Edition, as well as Adrenaline Cinema podcast, where we cover action, adventure, fantasy, suspense, thriller films, anything that gets your adrenaline going. The last episode that was just released was the one with Frank and myself, and we did cover Escape from New York. We had a lot of people that liked what was going on as far as what they heard. A lot of fan base on YouTube, apparently, on both, when I released it both on Panels to Pixels podcast on YouTube, as well as Adrenaline Cinema, because that was a faux pas on myself.
Nice.
But you could hear me also on Panels to Pixels podcast. And currently we're covering Gen V. So Rob and I are going to be the guys that are be currently covering Gen V. That's found on Amazon Prime. Currently released is episode 2 for season 1 of Gen V, which is a spinoff from The Boys. We invite anybody else that's out there. So Frank, Adam, or anybody else that wants to jump on and hang out and have fun and talk about Gen V, you're more than welcome. All you have to do is contact us at panelstopixels1@gmail.com. We are also covering Loki season 2. You could listen to myself and my buddy Steve Brown as we cover Loki season 2. Look forward to hearing my friend Kelly Burgess as she joins us coming within the next 2 weeks. But you could check me out on Panels to Pixels podcast, Adrenaline Cinema podcast, and right here on Fantasy Picks Movie Edition, as well as Sandman Cast on Podcast Network, or whenever I send out some feedback to my friends on the Podcast Network. So with that, I hope that you guys enjoyed this particular podcast. Rob, you were missed, but this was really fun for the three of us to do this just for fun. So I'm Rob, which I'm not. I'm Mark.
I was just going to say, are you sure?
I was playing Rob, so I'll do that again.
All
I'm
right,
Mark.
cool. And I'll just play myself. I'm Frank.
And I'm Michael Myers.
No.
I thought you were Adam.
Bro, you got done so dirty in your movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I was only in it for 5 minutes.
Have fun, everybody. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye bye.